Richard, thank you. And I'd like to thank you and Florence for giving me this opportunity to spend a little time with you and talk about Leader Dogs for the Blind. I was just telling Richard, I've actually been with Leader Dog for about 9 years. I started in January of 2011 as a puppy care attendant. I spent about 40 years in banking, and I don't tell that to too many people because there's a real negative connotation today with the word banking, but that's what I did. And went to work for Leader Dogs for the Blind as a puppy care attendant. And as I just told Richard, quickly learned that PUP is an acronym for picking up poop, and that's basically what a puppy care attendant does. But it was so much fun working with them and taking care of them and getting ready for their assignment for puppy raiser, who's going to have them for 12 or 14 months, and then bring them back to Leader Dog to be trained for a Leader Dog. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Give you a brief history of the organization. Let's talk about who we serve, how we serve them, the effects I'm going to intersperse throughout the presentation of COVID-19, how that's impacted us, the Leader Dog impact itself, and end up possibly talking about how you can help if you choose to do so, and open it up. Richard will help us field some questions. So, from humble beginnings. The picture you have on the slide right now to the left are the 3 Lions from Detroit, not that awful football team we've got down there, but 3 members of the Uptown Lions Club who had a mutual friend in early 1938 who was a doctor, Dr. Glenn Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler was blind. There was only one guide dog organization in North America at that time. That was Seeing Eye out of New Jersey. And they sent a letter to the organization in New Jersey and said they have a blind friend, a doctor, and we'd like to pay for whatever expenses he has, and the cost of a guide dog, and just let us know what we have to do. And they quickly got a response from Seeing Eye that said, we make the determination, the sole determination, as to who's going to receive a guide dog, and they declined the application. They were disappointed, but being Lions and seeing a need, they decided there must be something else they could do. Now remember, Seeing Eye is now the only guide dog organization in North America. So they had another friend who bred and raised Dobermans. And they went to the friend and said, we got a friend who's blind. Do you think you could teach one of your dogs to get him across the street safely? He doesn't get hit by a streetcar or a bus or a truck or something like that. And he said, I think I can. And he did. In the fall of 1938, they actually were able to present 4 guide dogs. One to Glenn Wheeler and 3 to other gentlemen who were blind as well. They were so emboldened by that success and seeing a need in this country from the guide dog school, they actually filed articles of incorporation in April of 1939, and it became what is today Leader Dogs for the Blind. And since that time, we have placed over 16,000 dogs in the hands of the blind and visually impaired. The picture you see in the upper right was the old farmhouse that was on the property. We are on the same 14 acres today that we were on at the time of the incorporation back in 1939. But from those humble beginnings, we have gone to this. We recently completed a construction, $14.5 million of a new canine development center. It's about 100,000 square feet. It was completed about 4 years ago. And I was telling Richard prior to that, and when I was working in the old kennel in Puppy Care, or in the Puppy Care area, or Puppy Land, it wasn't even air conditioned. So for the first 75 years or so that we were in existence, the facility that we had that went through several reconstructions or remodeling, it was all unair conditioned. And consider the weather we've had the last month or so, and all the water that we use, it was just like a sauna in there. It was just awful, but it's not today. We have a state-of-the-art facility. It is probably better than any, I'm not just saying this to brag, better than any guide dog facility in the world today. There might be one in Great Britain that kind of rivals this thing, but we're pretty proud of what we've got. Well, who do we serve? This is interesting. In the United States, there are 1.3 million people who are legally blind. 1.3 million people. 75,000 people will become blind or visually impaired this year. That's 205 people every single day. We have some pretty staggering statistics to look at as well. If you consider this, About 60% of the people who are blind or visually impaired are either unemployed or underemployed. And the reason for most of those, they've got the skills, but they don't have the transportation. They don't have the way to get around to get to the job or even to apply for one. About 60% remain unemployed or underemployed. About 90% live in low-income settings, and that's really driven by the fact that they can't work. Not because they don't have the skill, but they just don't have the ability to travel. And 43% of the people who are blind or visually impaired are living with some degree of depression. Virtually every person who I've worked with over the years who is blind or visually impaired tells me that number is probably pretty low, because they all have experienced some degree of depression during their blindness. And the most staggering statistic for me personally is that of all those people, that 1.3 million people in this country, only 10% of the people travel safely and independently, either using a cane or guide dog. 10%. Talk about underserved. That means that 90% of those people either travel with what we call a sighted guide, a human guide, a friend, a neighbor, a spouse, partner, someone who can help guide them around, or they don't travel at all. Their existence is strictly staying at home in seclusion because they don't have the ability to travel safely and independently. Well, how do we serve? We have 3 programs: guide dog training, hence the name Leader Dogs for the Blind; orientation mobility training, which is white cane training; and something called summer experience camp. And all of those services are provided absolutely free to our clients. There's no charge whatsoever. Their travel to and from Leader Dog is paid for. Their housing and meals when they're on campus is paid for. The guide dog itself, the equipment they need, the harness, the leash, all of those things are absolutely free to those clients because of the support that we receive from people, primarily Lions, but other folks throughout the country, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Let's look at guide dog training. Guide dog training is about a 25 residential program, which means we bring them on campus, and that's where they're trained. They're assigned a dog, and the training is personalized for each client. We're able, based on the short video they send us, the interviews we have, the application process, all the information they provide us, to match them with a dog that best fits their needs, their lifestyle, their travel, how quickly they travel, the pace, and so on, their physical size, the stamina, other considerations, the environment. And we look at their current needs, and also their future needs as well. And the training takes place not only on campus at Leader Dog in Rochester Hills, but at colleges like Oakland University, stores, malls, public transit. We take them down to Detroit Metro, and they spend some time down there, and really give them every single aspect of that training we possibly can to meet their current and future needs. The deafblind program. In 1992, Leader Dogs for the Blind became the first guide dog program on the planet to have a dedicated, on the planet now, to have a dedicated deafblind program, which means that a person can be also not only blind, but also profoundly deaf and come to Leader Dog and receive a dog. We are still the only guide dog organization in the Western Hemisphere that has a dedicated deafblind program. And we train about 10 deafblind clients every year, and again, give them a dog as well. Warm weather training. For some reason, and those of you in the northern part of the state can probably relate to this as well, but for some reason, folks don't want to come to Southeast Michigan in February to get a guide dog, even though that guide dog is free. So a few years ago, we decided to take the training to a warm weather area. So every February, we take one class, and this past February, we actually took 2 to Naples, Florida. I have not been able to get that gig yet. I've applied several times. They said, stick to doing what you're doing, Mike, and give those presentations. But we've got some trainers that need to be down here with their clients. So this last February, we had 2 classes. In total, over 10 clients who are deafblind received their guide dogs down there as well. It's an amazing program. And again, all the travel, all the expenses, the guide dog, everything else is paid for by Leader Dogs for the Blind. Urban training. few years ago, we decided, as we looked at the needs of our clients, that we had clients coming from pretty urban areas, Manhattan, Los Angeles, Miami, places like that, where Chicago, where they were really in a very hectic and very urban environment. We wanted to make sure that we were able to match their needs. So we bring them on campus for about 10 days. And then we take them to Chicago. So they have an opportunity to complete their training in a very specialized urban area on the L, those types of things. We also decided that we need to do something for those folks that can't get on campus for whatever reason. If you have a job that's keeping you, or home family requirements or concerns, and you can't really come to Leader Dog, we do a home delivery. So we'll take that dog, a guide dog mobility instructor, one of our trainers, and we go to the home of the person that wants that guide dog and has been approved for them. The interesting thing about that is those expenses, again, are all paid as well. And we have now been to and done home deliveries in 35 different states, including Alaska, and 3 provinces in Canada. And again, all of this is free. And finally, we have a program called Flex Delivery, where clients that we want to, and this is all been agreed upon between the client and Leader Dogs for Life, who would benefit from some days on campus. They will come to Leader Dog in Rochester Hills, spend about 10 days on campus. And then for the remaining portion of their training, we go to their hometown, their area, to their home, and teach them how to handle the dog in that environment. So they're getting all the training that they need in the special environment that they may have, or help them to meet those needs as well. Orientation mobility training. We are, once again, the only guide dog organization anywhere that brings clients on campus for 5 days of one-on-one training to use a cane. And that's all that many people who are blind or vision impaired desire to have, is the ability to work with a cane and travel with a cane. Now, many of them do come back and get a guide dog from Leader Dog, but they have to begin with orientation mobility training. And again, we're the only guide dog organization anywhere that brings them on campus 5 full days, one-on-one. So they're spending that whole day with that one guide dog mobility, with that orientation mobility trainer. It's so critical that they have orientation mobility program, training, and it is a precursor for getting a dog, because just like the sighted person who's using a map, you can't determine where you're going to go and how you're going to get there if you don't know where you are. So the orientation and mobility program that we have at Leader Dog for the Blind does just that. It teaches them how to find out where they are, know where they are, orientate themselves, and then travel with that cane safely and independently. Summer Experience Camp. This is a unique program. Once again, only guide dog, I hope you sense the drift or trend here. The only guide dog organization anywhere that brings our kids who are 16 and 17 years old, who are blind or vision impaired, on campus for 1 full week of training. It focuses on leadership training and enhancing their leadership skills, because they're typically not the very first person that's selected to do anything in the environment that they live in, whether it's in sports or academics or leadership programs. This gives them an opportunity to spend some time with other people that have the same type of challenges or disabilities that they have. So these are kids that are 16 and 17 years old. They spend that week on campus. We bring about 20 to 22 kids every single year on campus in June. And they have that opportunity to learn, again, some leadership skills, to do things that I would never even consider doing. We'd go to a place called Bear Lake up in Lapeer. It's a camp for kids that have disabilities. They spend a day there. They zip line. They rock walk. These are kids that are blind or vision impaired. They do all those types of things. One of the pictures you see there, and just about the center of it, has one of our volunteers on a tandem bike with one of our kids that is blind. The lower left, you've got a kid working with a handheld GPS instrument that we have. And it says on that slide as well about the GPS training. We are once again the only guide dog organization in the world that gives every single client a handheld GPS instrument to help them navigate just like you would with a car. Only one in the world. That costs about $699, I think. But once again, to our clients, it's absolutely free. And each of those three, oh, yeah, let me back up a little bit. In each of those three programs, they have really been affected by COVID-19. We've had to basically rewrite the first one on guide dog training. And we have a class that's just started on Sunday. They received their guide dogs yesterday on Wednesday. And we're the only guide dog, there's that trend again, anywhere in this country that is up and running right now with the class. We had to change a lot of things about that because of COVID. We had to kind of reestablish some parameters and set some protocols for people that are coming on campus. We had, because of social distancing, we have about 24 client rooms at Leader Dogs for Blind. We're now only using every second one or every third one, so we've reduced the size of our classes. We've had to change our eating accommodations so they have their meals in the dining room and there's no longer 8 people at a table. We've had to reduce that to 3 because of social distancing. The buses that we use, and we've got a fleet of about 30 different vehicles at Leader Dogs for the Blind. The buses that we use, that we typically put 10 or so clients and their dogs in each one, can't do that anymore because of social distancing. So it's taking more buses for that purpose, and we're probably going to end up leasing some as we continue to grow what we're doing. And we just had to make a significant number of changes as a result of it. The same is true with the white cane, the way we're doing that with the people with, coming in that are wearing masks, and how do you communicate with people who are blind or vision impaired when you've got the challenge of a mask separating them, or you've got the social distancing and those kinds of things. So we had to make that change as well. And more recently, just a couple of weeks ago, with Summer Experience Camp for the kids, we went to an entirely virtual training program for that full week. That gave us a lot of opportunity to do things differently. They lost the opportunity, of course, or the experience to come on campus, but nonetheless, we gave them some just amazing experiences over that time period. And we also were able to open up to 15 and 16-year-old kids because we were doing it in a virtual session. So we actually had 44 kids from several states throughout the country that participated in that program. We had a great time with it, and it's kind of opened our eyes, if you will, to ways that we can continue to grow the organization, grow the opportunities for kids in summer experience. And although our desire is to bring them back on campus next year, we're certainly going to try to do that. We'll also be able to have some virtual learning opportunities and experiences for the kids that are 14 and 15 years old, or others that may not be able to come on campus at that time. The Leader Dog impact. About 1 million hours of independence for our, days of independence for our clients. And we throw that number in there because it's all the people we have currently using guide dogs throughout the world, have the experience of white cane training and so on. So every year there's about 1 million days of independence. And our goal, of course, is to provide an environment that enables people who are blind or visually impaired, empowers them, if you will, to have safe and independent travel. About 200 dogs every year are matched with clients. We're going to make some changes this year because we were just about to start a class when in Michigan we went through the stay home, stay safe. And so we had to cancel about 3 classes. As I said, we were just up and running as of Sunday. So that number was down a little bit, but typically about 200 clients a year. About 100 clients are provided with white cane training every single year. About 24 kids come on campus, as I just explained, with our summer experience camp. And the 6 to 10 guide dogs are issued to our deafblind folks. And once again, no cost to our clients. The guide dog that we issued back in 1938 and 39 cost us about $600 for the dog, the training, and everything else. And it's not the same dollars we're dealing with today. But to put that in perspective, today's guide dog costs us just north of $48,000 for the training, the time on campus. That goes from the breeding and puppy raising and right to the very point where they're actually presented to one of our clients, about $48,000. And you can probably add another $5,000 or so for those that are receiving this who are deaf-blind clients. Significant charges, but again, all at zero expense to our clients because of our donors. Local impact, just again to put this in perspective, in the state of Michigan, we currently have 176 dogs in service. And historically, we have placed over almost 2,200 dogs to our clients in Michigan. Over 300 people have received orientation mobility program. Again, this is just in Michigan. And over the last few years, 48 kids, 16 and 17 years old, who are blind, vision impaired, have brought on campus. How can the Association of Lifelong Learners help? Several things that anyone can do, actually, whether it's the organization or individuals. Donate to Leader Dogs for the Blind. Help us continue to detect the things that we do. Raise a puppy for Leader Dogs for the Blind. And there are a number of folks saying, yeah, there's no way I could do that. I couldn't give it back. We have about 400 puppy raisers throughout this country and in 3 different provinces in Canada. About 70% of them will train another puppy, a second, third, and fourth puppy. I think our record right now, we've got one raiser that has raised 54 puppies for Leader Dogs for the Blind. And if you do the quick math and say, Mike, how can that work? How old is this person? Well, when she initially started many years ago, you could have more than one puppy on in your property. So she had children that were raising puppies as well in her household, but about 54 of them. It's a great program. Puppy raisers get tremendous support from our team at Leader Dogs for the Blind. You work with a puppy counselor, so you and a handful of other puppy raisers would be working with that counselor, doing some outings with them, learning how to handle things. It's a person and a resource you can lean on to help in that process. You might want to consider that as well. Post about Leader Dogs for the Blind on social media. There's a lot on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. We are out there. You can follow us there, and you can set up links to things that we're doing here at Leader Dogs for the Blind. A lot of really good information. And another one is looking at some of the things we've got out there that are recorded. Some of the programs we've got that you can look up online and look at some of the videos that Leader Dog has out there today. And visit us on leaderdog.org. There's a lot of success stories out there. There's a lot of client videos and applications. Give you an idea of what an applicant goes through, the process they go through. Just a lot of really, really good information out there. Oh, and we're trying to do all our things that we can in conjunction with what our governor is trying to do with our state. Masking, and they want to make sure that everybody washes their paws. And our dogs take that to heart as well. So they're working with their pups and other dogs on campus to make sure they wash their paws as well. And finally, this is a good friend of mine. Jeff Hawkins is a former EMT. He was an EMT for about 24 years, has something called Stargardt's, and over that time, lost his vision. About 6 years ago, he came to Leader Dog for orientation mobility training and thought this was great and the best thing that could ever happen to him. And he said that was really good for about a year. And then he decided, you know, I can do more. There's got to be something else I can do. Just about that time, he got a call from Leader Dog, and they said, how are things going? And he said, you know what? The White Cane has been great, but I think it's time for me to get a dog. He and Gracie have now become 2 of the most requested speakers we have on our tour, our cadre of clients that speak on behalf of Leader Dog. He's traveled the length and breadth of this country. He's a great presenter. And if you're ever looking for someone else to talk about Leader Dogs, he'd be absolutely delighted to spend some time in a Zoom meeting like this. So that's pretty much what I've got. Richard, if you'd like to push some questions my way, I'd be delighted to spend some time and answer any question that you may have. And nothing is off the board or out of bounds.
Well, Mike, you certainly, I saw the picture you have on the screen right now, and I said, is that the guy I know? Because he's the son of my neighbor, Mark.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk about a full world.
Yeah, he was just up here a few weeks ago with his Leader Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, interesting thing about what you see with that picture of Jeff, he's hiking. He's got a backpack there,
Right.
and he and his wife are extremely active. He still plays hockey.
Oh,
Good.
really?
Yeah, he does. He, he's just he's it's like an adrenaline rush, and that's why he loved doing the EMT work. But after he got Gracie, he said, we always like to do hiking and backpacking and those kinds of things. And I wonder if Gracie can do it. Now, we don't teach that at Leaderville, obviously. But he put Gracie in harness, and then they went out on one of the trails in northern Michigan. They started, I think, at Pontiac Lake. That was the first place they went, I believe. And took her off harness, but on leash, and gave her free rein. And he said some of the paths that we go are, 3 foot wide, and she just does an amazing job and loves it. So it just gives you an idea, Richard, of what those dogs are capable of doing. And the
Right,
team
right.
bonding with play. So what a small world. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That is really
I,
amazing.
I thought maybe there were two of them, but then after you said his name was Jeff, I know who he was. I'll
Incredible.
have to tell my neighbor that their son was on our program here.
Absolutely. But I'm
Anyway,
serious. We'd be delighted to do a Zoom at some point in time.
right,
He's
right.
got a
Well, there
great
was a question that came in on chat.
Yes,
Where do you get your puppies from? Shelters, breeders?
that's a great question. In the early days, that's where they came from, shelters, breeders, and so on. And they made good leader dogs at that time. The challenge became, though, is if you're getting a donated dog or getting one from a shelter, you don't know the health history. You don't know how long they're going to be in service, even though they make a great leader dog. So several years ago, we started our own breeding program. We now have about 80 dogs that are both, the male or female, that are in breeding homes, and we have host families that keep the male or female until we need to breed them. And then they're brought into leader dogs for the blind. They are bred there. Gestation period, this is a good trivia question, is 63 days. So 63 days after successful breeding, they are brought back, the dogs are born. They're going to spend about 6.5 weeks with the breeding family. They're brought to leader dog, and then they're going to spend about 7 days or so there. Then they're assigned to one of those 400 or so puppy raisers that I talked about. It's a very good question. Did you ask me about breeds? I don't know if you asked that or not.
There was another question there about how do you match a particular dog with a client?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And it's not just, well, we're going to give Jeff this yellow lab, and you're going to get the black lab over here, and how about you take the German Shepherd? The application process that they go through, the interviews that we do with the clients, and they have to give us a short video showing them how to travel with it, that they can travel, showing us that they can travel with a cane and get a sensitive environment. And then we do an incredibly good job of matching that client to that dog based on all the things that we've experienced, the environment that they live and work in, their pace, how tall or short they might be, all of those types of things, how they're going to use that dog, and the personalities based on the individuals that we have. And believe me, dogs, if you've ever had one, and cats in general, domestic cats, but especially dogs, domestic animals, I should say, but especially dogs have their own personality. And we do an excellent job in matching them with that client. In the rare situation where the match doesn't work, and let's say we're already in training, and we just see that in the first few days after the dog is presented that it just doesn't seem like a good match, we'll always discuss first with the client and see if there isn't a change we could make. We've always got backup dogs, and we'll come up with something else. And in one case last year, in our last fiscal year, we had 2 clients in class, and the trainers are talking to the clients and talking amongst themselves, and they both agreed that this just wasn't a good match. But they talked two good matches, but they talked to both clients and said, "We've got a thought. See what you think of this. How about if we flip dogs? We traded with you, and this is entirely up to you. If it works, great. If you're willing to do this, if it doesn't, we'll come up with something else." And it worked perfectly. So we do the very best job that we can, and just have some great success in matching the client to the dog. Great question.
Another one was what breeds are best from your experience?
Well, over the years, as I said, we started with Dobermans, and we've used German Shepherds, and we've used Collies for a while. We've just gone through and looked at a number of breeds. But over the years, with the breeding program that we've had, we've focused on 3 different breeds: Labs, both yellow and black, Golden Retrievers, and German Shepherds. The Labs, about probably 80% of our dogs today are Labs. About 15% or so are Goldens, and about 5% are German Shepherds. We are also doing some crossbreeding of Labs and German Shepherds. And we're even doing some crossbreeding with Labs and, excuse me, I said German Shepherds, I meant to say Goldens. We're also using some German Shepherds and some crossbreeding as well. And there's really a couple of reasons why we decided on those breeds. And most people will say, well, it's because they train well and they bond well, and that is correct. But the real reason is they all have 2 coats of hair. And most people don't even think about that. But they're in so many different environments. We've got them around the world. I mentioned we've had dogs in Alaska and out west and in the north and northeast. So you've got dogs that have to be able to, requirements for dogs to be able to function in different weather situations. But it's really the fact that those 3 breeds have 2 coats of hair, but also because they are so easily trained with clients. The one exception there is German Shepherds. They make great, great guide dogs if you can get them past the fact that they have to go through so many lifestyle changes, and they don't function very well changing from one person to the next. They bond extremely well with the person that they have. And anyone who's ever had a German Shepherd know what great companions they can make. But they have a difficult time transitioning from the puppy raiser to the trainer, and then another 3rd major change to a client. But other than that, they make great dogs.
Another question: do the dogs seem to work best without other animals in the home?
It depends on the dog, but we have many guide dogs, leader dogs, I should say, that are in homes where there are other dogs. And we make sure that that's going to work before we assign. That's one of the things that we'll look at as well in that whole application process. Do you have other dogs in the home? And that's something we'll look for as well, and to make sure we've got a good match there. A number of our clients, when a dog is retired, and the dog will usually tell you he or she just starts slowing down and they're not as energized or excited about putting the harness on and going out and working, that it's time to retire me. Many of our clients keep the dogs at the existing dog that they had, the one that just retired, at home, and can bring another dog in. And if that doesn't work, we find a place for them to spend their retirement years. Puppy raisers, the same thing. If somebody's saying, well, I'd like to do it, but I've got a dog. Well, we'll make sure that that dog can handle other dogs around them or other puppies around them. So we have a number of puppy raisers that do exactly the same thing. Those are good questions. Thank you.
In terms of I'm not sure what's the expected working life of a dog before retirement?
Yeah, you put it exactly the correct way. About 8 years on average. And that places the dog at about 10 years of age, because they're close to 2 years old by the time the client actually gets them. So about eight years on average.
Okay. Now, throughout the country, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, there's other organizations similar to Leader Dogs here. How many, do you know how many approximately there are?
Yeah, there's about 12 or 13 or so other guide dog organizations in the country.
Okay. 'Cause I know we stayed in Florida for a while, and there was one not too far from us. I was
Southeastern.
surprised.
Yeah, that would be Southeastern. They're very good guide dogs too.
Anyone else have questions? You can either chat or unmute your mic.
And again, there's none out of bounds. Any questions you've got, we're prepared to answer. And if I don't know the answer, I'll make it up. Who's going to know?
Well, the next time you see Jeff, tell him that hello from Dick Brown.
I will absolutely do that. That's really
His,
amazing.
his father's neighbor. He'll know.
I will absolutely do that.
Anyone else? Well, I guess, Mike, I very much enjoyed the presentation. I learned a number of things I hadn't really thought of, especially your comment about 2 layers of hair. I would have never guessed that one.
Nobody would ever get that one right. You can use that in a trivia game as well.
Yeah. We've had labs. I never realized that they had 2 layers of hair, but
that whole shedding process you go through.
I must not have been paying attention enough.
We've got 2 rescues ourselves. They were not former leader dogs. They're both mixed breeds, and we can stuff pillows, mattresses, whatever you want with the hair of these guys shed.
Yeah, I know.
It's an ongoing process.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, unless there's some other comments, questions, you got some thank yous on chat, Mike, and we appreciate your time and educating us on Leader Dog. And we'll try to get this video up and link it into our Facebook page so some other people can see it too.
Perfect. And if you think of anything, any questions you have, by all means, Richard, just pass them on to me. And
right.
Again, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I love doing this, and I appreciate the opportunity to share what I think I know about leader dogs for the blind.
Well, you certainly have had a lot of exposure and experience. You educated us on what PUP means.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, great. Thanks. We'll end the meeting now.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.